When it comes to retro games, we don't always want the perfectly crafted, pulse-pounding action game or the RPG that's so sprawling that it needs to be pressed onto multiple CDs. Sometimes we just want an interesting experience or something that's a little rough around the edges but still fun and an interesting time. And so that's why today I want to talk about Out to Lunch for the Super Nintendo. Out to Lunch, or Pierre Le Chef is Out to Lunch as it's known in Europe, was developed and published by Mindscape for the Super Nintendo in 1993. You play as the aforementioned Pierre Le Chef, who must recapture all of his ingredients after they come to life and escape from his refrigerator. It's a weird premise, and I'm gonna be upfront. I have a weird issue with sentient food. I'm not a fan of things like the Pop-Tart commercials, where a human nurse devours a newly born baby Pop-Tart, so I'm a little weirded out by chasing down self-aware cheese wheels and tomatoes in an attempt to capture them so they can be served to upscale patrons. That said, Out to Lunch doesn't show the end results, so it's a bit more gentle in that regard. But I digress. Out to Lunch presents you with 48 vertically sprawling levels that task you with jumping on top of the fast food to stun them, then hitting them with your net in order to capture them. Once you've deposited a specific amount back in a cage, a door opens up to take you to the next stage. It's not as easy as that though, and taking a hit will free all of the food you're carrying, sending them scurrying away. On top of that, later levels have even more hazards, like bacteria that cost you a life each time they catch you, and Le Chef Noir, an evil chef that runs to the cage and lets all your captured food free. And that's where the gameplay hook comes in. You have a lot of risk and reward to balance. You can catch all the food and deposit it at once, which saves you time because each level does have a timer, or you can drop them in the cage in smaller batches to spare you the danger of getting hit and losing them, but that leaves you open for Le Chef Noir to show up at a bad time and let them all out. And that's what I like about Out to Lunch. It's not a fantastic game, but it's got an interesting idea that's got some hooks to it. We don't always want to play something amazing, sometimes just something that's interesting is enough. Out to Lunch does have issues. The controls are slippery, which sometimes makes lining up your jumps a bit more difficult than it needs to be. It's frustrating, but it's not really a deal breaker. Aside from that though, the game's pretty hard. Even though the game boasts several international locales, you're likely only to see Switzerland because of the difficulty, which, combined with the lack of passwords or battery backup, makes getting through the game a pretty tall order. I couldn't even cheat and use footage from the game's attract mode and make it look like I got further than I did because it's all over so quick. I can no longer hide from you the fact that I'm terrible at games. How far you get doesn't really matter though. The game is just fun to kick back with for a little bit and see how far you can get and not really think about anything. The game does keep track of high scores, so you can see if you have what it takes to be a top chef like me or Pee-wee or Fat Gav. And like every game I talk about on the show, Out to Lunch isn't going to cost you very much money, with a loose cartridge running you about $10. And I think it's worth that price just on novelty alone. Out to Lunch isn't perfect, but it's a unique game with good presentation that's fun to play, and you can't really ask for a whole lot more than that, and there aren't really any other games like it. What it lacks in depth and polish, it makes up for in charm and personality. And that's all I've got for today, so until next time, love games, love yourselves, and love each other.